if you also, and the first thing I'm going to ask is a little housekeeping. I need all of you to go into the chat and just type your name in. The reason for that is that's the attendance for the state. So the state keeps supporting Jumpstarts. So we have to turn all that information into them, like how many people showed up and who was there, that kind of thing. So if you would just throw your name in the chat for me, I would really appreciate that, because it looks like we have about 50 of us on here. And that will take care of the attendance for them, and I don't have to listen to them squawk and whine. And you know, it's really important. I shouldn't really say it that way, because it really is important. We've worked very hard at NBRC, the director and associate director, in getting grant money and things to be able to run all this support for teachers in our state. And I would hate to lose that. And this is part of what they want, is an attendance. So if you would just type your name into the chat, that's all you need to do. You don't have to tell me where you're from or anything. They just want to know who showed up. All right, with that said, I'm going to steal your screen now and start with this. So we started out with, let me get this all, okay. I'm just clearing my screen so I can see. All righty, so get you in here. So you are the Tuesday night group. This is being, the Jumpstart is being supported through the National Board Resource Center, and that's at ISU. That's where you get all your emails from. Occasionally you'll get some from National Board. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm glad to see everybody here. I want you to know that you are part of one of two groups. You are either part of the group of teachers coming off of their last 10 years for national boards. So they're in their 8th or 9th year, and they're now starting with the MOC, which is a 5-year program. And some of you are from the 5-year program of initial certification, and you're in your year 3 or year 4, and you're getting ready to do your renewing here also. So my name is Ann Min. I am a National Board Certified Teacher in Middle School Science. And why did I maintain my NBCT credential? Well, the first time that I renewed was 2009, and I was also getting ready to retire then. Not that particular year, but in the next couple of years. And I felt that I worked so hard for my initial that I didn't want to give it up. And I've noticed that for me personally, a lot of doors opened up. Being able to do this through the National Board Resource Center, I have had those opportunities. I've had some teaching opportunities come across that I couldn't pass up, and they happened because I was an NBCT. That's why I was contacted. So I'm not sure where in your career you are. If you're close to retirement, you're trying to decide, should I do this, shouldn't I do this? Don't close doors for yourself. There are all sorts of opportunities through the state and stuff that you can be involved in. You know, you never know where you're going to move or what's going to happen in this crazy world, that you might have to go back into teaching. And that NBC credential is going to help you do that too. So that would be kind of my words of wisdom on this one. We're going to take some time to get to know the profile for professional growth. That's your direction booklet. It's like your Bible that you have to live with. And we're going to take a look at it, see what's in there. We're going to really talk about component 1 and 2, because my goal is that when we get done at the end of the evening, that you feel comfortable with what you're going to be embarking on. If you're kind of sitting on the fence and trying to make a decision, I hope that I'm kind of twisting your arm to go ahead and do it. It's not as bad as you think. And when you also leave, that you understand what's going to be expected of you to go through this. I'm going to kind of address initial certification first. When you start going down this path for renewal, all of those stomach lining tents that you had when you went through initial, they're all going to start to bubble up, and you're going to push them to the side, because this is nothing like your initial certification. In your initial certification, you had to collect data, you had to interpret the data, you had to tell us based on the data where were you going from there. And this MOC is not that situation. National Boards has already taken the stance that you've already passed National Boards, so they know you know how to collect data, you know how to interpret data and how to use that that data to impact your students. They want to know, what have you been doing with your time since you were initially certified? And when you did that, what, what's going on, and where have you gone from here, and what kind of leadership things have you done, or what kinds of things have you done to better yourself as a professional in whatever you've chosen to do. And some of you may have left the classroom and gone into literacy coaching, or you're an administrator now. You might even be working for a book company or something now because you're helping to come out with the newest materials for kids. So the purpose of my conversation is that when you first went through initial, your family didn't know you. You were so busy working on that initial certification that it took a lot of time. This is not going to take your life over. All right. What it says, what do you wish you knew at the beginning that you learned as you completed the PPG? I wish I had known how to be organized for it. I learned some methods that I'm going to share with you as we go through things and how to get yourself ready. Insights I've already talked a little bit about, or the misunderstandings about how I was, that all that old stuff, all that stress from the first time around bubbled up when I first started with the renewal. And then I realized that, this is totally different. Logistical issues as far as timelines go, it's about 30 to 40 hours worth of work. The three of us, myself, Michelle, and Mary Ellen, who are the support facilitators, we have our schedule or your timeline set up so it pretty much revolves around the 3-day weekends. And if you portion your time and do the little pieces that we show you as we go along, you'll have this all put together, ready to go by the time you finish your spring break. That's assuming we're back in school and we have spring break, but whatever. Anyway, that's how the timeline is going to work. So if you're trying to see how it figures in. Now, we do know that we have quite a few high school people this year who are looking at this. And if you're coaching, it's pretty easy to speed this up so that it's all done, just ready to be uploaded by the time your spring season starts. The track coaches seem to always be concerned about that. And we can work around those schedules for you to help you be there and not be a total wreck trying to finish too many things at one time. Maintenance of certificate is what the new name is called. When you go to the NBPTS page, that's what you're looking for. On that page, that's where you found your directions. They have all sorts of frequently asked questions there. And also, they have a link there that says COVID-19. And I want to address that right now with all of you. National Boards has done a wonderful job of working on accommodations for teachers because they know that most teachers are in e-learning or some kind of hybrid, whatever. And that it looks very different right now than what the old normal used to be. And so all summer long, we've been involved in webinars with them and writing in, well, what about this situation and what about that situation kind of thing. And they have done a great job of accommodations. So if you're looking at your situation, you go, I'm not sure that I can do this. I want you to look at the COVID-19 link that's on this page so that you can look to see how does your situation fit with what they've already answered. For example, some people are in school districts where the school board has already told you or the administration has told you that you cannot record your classes that are on Zoom. And they do that blanket because they have to protect themselves. So we recommend that you print out the form that the parents sign for permission for their child to participate in your class when you're videotaping. And if you bring that form, it'll show the attorneys that your recording goes nowhere other than national boards. It's used to be for your evaluation, and when they're done with the evaluation, it's gone. Okay, so that's part of their concern is that, where's it going to be posted, who's going to have access to it, and that form explains what your video is going to be used for. Some school districts want kids' names. So I would highly recommend, if you're using Zoom or Google Meets or whatever, if the student first and last name shows up, you're going to want them to change their name to be just their first name or their initials. That helps with the anonymity. And that makes, that's where some administrators are nervous that they don't want the full name out. And I don't blame them. They need to have that protected for students. So COVID-19 link is on this page, and you want to take a look at that. So we're going to take a look at page 9 in your directory or in your directions, and that's going to make that handout that I sent out on Saturday make sense. At the NBRC, we refer to that handout as the placemat. And the front side of it shows the architecture of accomplished teaching. And if you look at the one that I sent to you as a handout, it does not look like a DNA molecule like this one does on page 9. Some people had, this just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to some people. So in Illinois here, we rewrote it. And when you look at it, you follow the arrows around it, it's a flow chart. But there are some different things there. You've got the 5 core propositions are noted on there in the little boxes. You have black print on the outside, and those are all the Danielson steps, and so they're all cross-referenced there. And when you look at the second page, it shows the 5 core propositions down the left-hand side, the Danielson model down that skinny column, and then types of questions that fit with those core propositions. So when you're trying to show that you are making use of your core propositions and the architecture of teaching and the standards in your writing, you've got it all in that placemat. Now, standards is particularly for the teachers that are coming off the 10-year certification. The standards have all been updated, and the MOC is going to be scored based on the new standards. So make sure that you look at national boards standards for your certification area so that you're using the newest standards. Unlike the first time around where they told you exactly which standards you had to address, that doesn't happen in the MOC. And you don't have to quote a standard. They're looking to see, have you read your standards? Because based on your standards, you've picked up some lingo, some vocabulary from them, and they're expecting to see that in your writing. So this is the handout that I sent to you. So we've got the Danielson stuff here. You have the core propositions are in here. You've got the flow chart. Where are you going with all of this? So that you, we just felt that this was a better visual. And the people that were in Jumpstart on Saturday said, could you please send that to us? Because we like that better than the one that's on page 9. It's the same information. It's just presented differently. And so that's why you got these 2 pages as a handout in your email. Okay, focus of the PPG.
And we had several people in the chat who said that they did not receive the handout. So I'm just kind of making notes of names.
Okay.
And maybe we can just resend everything.
I'm happy to resend it. If you registered after Saturday,
we might not have.
I didn't have your email address. So you're going to need to put your email address in the chat so I know who I'm sending it to. Okay. The people who've already registered, I sent it on Saturday to the emails that they gave NBRC when they registered for Jumpstart.
Perfect. I will collect those emails. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. So what we're looking for in this PPG is what you continue to do in your classroom if you're still in the classroom, what you do for yourself as a learner, and how do you enhance student learning. That's kind of the, that is the core of all of this. When we compare your initial certification to maintenance and certificate, it's a little different. Initial, if you are on the 5-year cycle, you had components 1, 2, 3, 4, and you did 1 and 3 together and 2 and 4 together, and you sent all of that in, and each of those components was evaluated separately by different people. And they put the scores all together, and you got some feedback, and you got a number. In maintenance and certificate, your entire thing that you're going to write for components 1 and 2, so your entire thing is going to get sent to one, it's going to get uploaded to National Board. One person's going to evaluate it holistically, that meaning that they're going to read it from beginning to end, and they're going to watch your video. They are not giving you a number. They are just telling you you've either renewed or not renewed. Less pages. You can't beat around the bush. You don't have the space to do it. You have to hit the answers to those questions as specifically and as tightly as you can, or you're going to find out that you're writing, 8 pages and they only give you 4. So you're going to have to really, those of you who like to get winded, you can't in this. You have to really go after those questions. The level of rigor is still there. They expect really good writing. They expect to be able to see evidence that that you read your standards and that you remember the core propositions and things within your writing. But it is different. So a little bit about, well, okay, so how many people pass this thing? It runs about 95%. And that so as a teacher, we are never satisfied with the good number. We look at the bad number and we go, so what happened here? What's those 5%? Well, the 5% are a couple of things. The 5% are those people who are eligible to go through renewal or maintenance of certificate, and they chose not to. They might have chosen not to because they died or because they're retiring and they said, I'm just letting it lapse. And it might be a couple people in there, roughly about 1%, who really wrote poorly and didn't show that they were really maintaining anything. Most of the time, though, when you don't make it the first time, it's because when you uploaded your information, you didn't upload everything. The 3 of us ladies that have worked in the state, we've had 2 not renew on their first try, and it was because both of them neglected to upload their evidence. They uploaded all their writing, all their videos, everything was great, but they didn't include their evidence, so they couldn't be renewed because they didn't send a whole complete package. And fortunately for both of them, they were in their 8th year and not their 9th year, because the 9th year, or in the case of the 5-year people, 4th year, it's one and done. If you miss it, then you have to start all the way over again with initial certification. So we'll address that too.
And
Yep.
can you go back one slide? Lauren wanted to take a screenshot of a slide.
A screenshot? Was that of the Danielson thing?
I think it was that the Danielson, Lauren? I think she's unmuting. Or no, let's see.
Let's see if I can do that.
I think she's typing it in. The one with the questions. There you go.
Well, there's not questions here.
The 3 questions, I think the focus of the PPG. Yes, this is what she wanted. If you can just pause there
Okay.
for a second.
All right, I'll leave it there while I talk a little bit about renewal. If you're in your 8th year or your 3rd year, that means you still have 2 years to go. You go through renewal this year, you're successful this year, it doesn't stop your initial certification. Your 5 years will be added on to the end. So you don't lose 2 years of your initial certification just because you did this 2 years before it was up. If you're on your 9th year or 4th year, depending on which cycle you're coming off of, it will add to the end of yours. So you don't lose a year. There were a couple of people who were misunderstanding that. On Saturday, they thought, well, I don't want to renew right now because then I'll lose 2 years on my initial. And that doesn't happen. When your initial expires, then your renewal kicks in. I'm going to switch this slide. If she needs it longer, we'll get it at the end. Okay, so let's take a look at page 2 so you see something about the components. Okay, you're going to have 2 components. In the first component, you're going to put together these professional growth experiences. So what is a professional growth experience? It's all the stuff you've been doing since you're certified. So I would recommend for organization and to help you out with this, that you sit down and you're going to write yourself, either with, I use sticky notes, some people use index cards, some people use a pad of paper, some people work on a Word document, whatever, but you're going to make a list of what things have you been involved in. Have you gotten another degree? Have you started a new program in your district? Are you doing some different things with your kids? Maybe literacy was a weakness in your district. You went and got a whole bunch of training and stuff in literacy. So you're going to go through that. And you're going to, I would put one on each card or each, in my case, it was a sticky note. And you're just going to think about that. The three of us who facilitate the support, we spend the entire month of October just making the list. We don't go and write anything. We don't do anything. We make that list. Because the better that list is, the easier it is to sort it into groups and then to look at the groups and go, oh, I can sort this into 4 kind of topics. And these 2 seem to be really strong. And those are the 2 you're going to use for your PGE. In that PGE, what's going to be expected of you is you're going to write for each of them. So you've got 2 of them. For each of them, you're going to write 4 pages. You're going to, there's some prompts. I'm going to show you those in a little bit when we delve into component 1 a little bit more. You need to also include supporting evidence, 2 pieces for each PGE. Okay. Component 2, that's where the video is. You're going to look at your PGEs and say, I'm going to use this PGE, and that's the topic I'm going to videotape. So let me give you an example. When I went through, one of my topics was technology. I'm in science. Science has exploded with all the different things that we can use with kids, probes, all those kinds of things. I had to train myself on that. So one of my PGEs was on technology. I talked about what I had to train in and then how I used it in my classroom so my kids could further their education by using these probes and things. So I chose to use that one for my video because I could demonstrate in a classroom with the kids using the probes and using the technology. They had the Chromebooks there and the whole bit. And so you could see how science has changed from what it was 10 years ago when I went through to when I did that particular video. On the video page, you get to 5 pages, that's it. So total, you've got 13 pages that you're turning in. That's it. So when I said you really can't beat around the bush, you can't beat around the bush. What's a PGE?
And can I ask one question here? Because I don't know in the rules if this changed yet. Are we allowed edits in the video, or is it 10 continuous minutes?
Yeah, when we get into component 2, we'll talk a lot more about those videos.
Okay. I wanted to make sure if that was something that had changed. I wanted to make sure we got out there. So, okay.
Okay. Yep. It's coming up. So we talked about the PGs are going to be these topics, and those topics are going to come from you making this list of what have you been involved in. And you're going to look for the 2 topics that seem to naturally fall out that you know you could write about and that you can demonstrate direct or indirect impact on student learning. Okay, that's really, really important. And I would write myself a note out in the margin or somewhere on page 2, direct or indirect impact on student learning, that you're going to use that exact phrase in your writing. Page 14, that's the rubric. So it's a grayed out box up at the top of the page. It's as nebulous as it was when you went through initial. So you're going to kind of have to look in there and go, okay, so what does this mean? What do they really want me to do here so that I make sure that I demonstrate this in my writing or in my video when I'm working on things and when they go with their checklist. I've been on both sides of the desk. I've been a scorer and I have been the facilitator for programs. And literally the scorers have this list in front of them. And they're looking for pieces of evidence that that is showing up in your writing or in your video. I can tell you that National Boards works very hard at keeping that evaluation very stable. They assume that you are a perfect paper and you get to shoot yourself in your foot. But they work very hard with the people who are scorers, and they check with them over and over and over again to make sure that their biases are not part of the evaluation. And if they are, and they will randomly select things that we've scored and have a second person score it to see if their score is close to what we score the first time. If it's not, then a third person's brought in. So they are very much, they use the same system as they do for the AP classes in high school. So very tight. You are fairly, I'm very comfortable saying that I feel you are fairly evaluated when you are evaluated. So component one, all the component one directions run from page 16 to page 19 in your direction booklet. You have to show evidence of your certificate-specific knowledge growth. You know, what have you done that it contributes? So my case in science, in one topic, it was the learning I did with technology. Have you done some professional development to stay current in your field? How about equity and diversity? How do you address that in your classroom? And is there some variety and some kind of evidence of ongoing or evolving growth? So that's what they're looking for. You're going to identify these two PGEs. You have the commentary, the written commentary in response to the prompts. You're going to collect the evidence that supports the PGEs, and all of that stuff is going to show impact on student learning. So let's get a little picky about it. The written commentary information is on page 16. These 5 prompts, they must be answered in each PGE. So if you, I would say, I'm looking, I will tell you where we're at. Where I'm on page 17, the prompts are there, 1 through 5, and then 6 through 9. We're going to take 1 to 5 first. I recommend that you take the words that I have bolded on the paper and you underline them. And the reason you're doing that is because when you answer number 1, you're going to use those 2 words somewhere in your answer, and they're going to be bolded in your writing. And the reason you're doing that is you're calling attention to the score to say, here's where I'm answering question 1. And then when I get to question 2, response to identified needs is bolded. Here's where I'm answering question 2. You don't want the scorer to have to hunt for your answer. You don't want to, we don't want to leave anything to guessing. We want to make sure they know where you're answering things, and you know that you have to answer these 5 questions for each of the 2 PGEs. Now, questions 6 through 9, they have to be answered somewhere, either in first PGE or second PGE. You don't have to answer all 4 of them in each PGE. And I would highly recommend, same thing, the bold words, underline them on your paper on page 17. That way, the scorer who's sitting there with those 9 questions in front of them, they're going to see those bolded words. They're going to get, oh, here's where number 9 is being answered. Here's where number 8 is being answered. I've had candidates in the past who've tried to answer all 9 questions in each PGE. And when you read it, you can tell some of the answers are forced. If it doesn't fit, don't answer it there. Use it, answer it in the next PGE. You don't want to try and put a square peg in a round hole. So just, you're going to take your time. By bolding those words, you're helping the scorer know which question you're answering so that they don't have to hunt and you don't have to worry about, well, will they know that I answered number 9 or number 7 in my first PGE, but I answered number 8 in my second PGE. They'll know because the bolding is there.
And a few people are asking if you can go back to the slide that has 1 through 5. They were trying to underline some certain things that you said there.
Okay.
If we could keep that one back up for a moment, please.
Sure. Michelle, thanks for monitoring this thing so that I can go, oh, I see what's still going on here because I wasn't thinking when I made this slide. Mm-hmm. There we go.
And I think to clarify some of the comments, they probably aren't bolded in the directions.
They are not.
Anne is just stating that these are some of the key important words. And just so you know too, if you join one of our cohort groups, tonight is really just a brief overview to get you started. We go through all of this in a lot more detail in our first sessions too.
Right.
So don't feel like you need to grab it all tonight.
Yeah. So these 5 are on page 17. They're up at the top there. That's where you're underlining them because they are not bolded in the directions. National Boards doesn't have them bolded. We, I believe, or I feel, and Michelle feels, jump in. I think we've been so successful with candidates that because in the writing we've had the bolding done, everything is organized. It was easy for a scorer to be able to look at it and go, wow, they got it. It's right there. I can see it. I don't have to hunt for it.
We talk a lot about sentence stems too, and rewording, taking questions and rewording them. And another question that's coming up, will you be able to share the recording from tonight back so people can go back and, review it?
The recording is going to NBRC. I don't know what Chris is doing with it.
Okay. We can check to see if it can be posted on the NBRC website under the renewal materials. So we can look for that. I'll put that in a note that we can ask Chris.
Okay. And do we have anybody who still needs this slide, or can I move on? I'm moving on. I didn't hear from anybody. Here we go. Okay.
One person still said she needed it.
Okay. So basically, I'll go back to there. There you go. The next slide is basically just some organization, how to wrap your head around what we do in October. First, you sit down by yourself and make your list of the things that you were involved in. Then you're going to work, most of us pal around with a couple of colleagues and we go to workshops together, or we sit and talk about things together, or we do book studies together, or whatever. I ran my list by those people because when they looked at it, they went, oh, well, you forgot, we went to this seminar, or we went to this convention, or we went here, or we did this presentation, and you don't have it on your list. So they're helping you to collect the rest of your ideas. And the third thing you might want to do is run your list past your administrator. In my district, our administrators keep a working personnel file, and anything we do or we're involved in, they keep track of it in that file. And so, I had my principal take a look at it, and he found a couple of things that I didn't even list, and quite frankly, I just forgot about them. And I didn't have paperwork for them, so I didn't even remember about it, but he did. So that was helpful to me to be able to do that. Once you have, once you get that whole list and you're satisfied that you can't think of another thing to go on that list, then you're going to start sorting those things that you have. And how do they fall out in topics? So we're going to organize them. I already told you one of the organizations that I saw fall out was this whole technology, a leadership thing, because I had really gotten involved in doing a lot of presentations and things. My involvement with national boards, that was another topic that I could write about. So you'll find that your activities will naturally fall together into different groups. If you have more than 2 groups, that's great. Then you're going to look at your groups and say, which 2 do you feel are the strongest, where you can really show impact on student learning? So that's where you're going with this one. Now, component 2. So that's pages 20 to 25 in your booklet. And we're going to spend a little bit of time. Those pages review the directions, the specific requirements. They review the prompt questions. They also tell you, they compare the prompt to the rubric, and they also talk about the video. So let's go into some of those. Video recording, no more than 10 minutes.
Hi, Jim. Can I call you in like an hour? I'm in a Zoom.
And you're also.
Okay, I promise I'll call you in an hour. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. The video recording cannot exceed 10 minutes. So if you turn in 10 minutes and 6 seconds, the scorer machines turn off at 10 minutes. They'll never see those 6 seconds. Okay. It can be segmented into 3 sections. So you can turn your camera on and off twice. So you've got 3 sections. Some people like to show a little bit of the beginning and a little bit of the middle and a little bit of the end. or maybe they're moving from group to group, and so they're using their 3 sections to show 3 different groups. Within a section, you cannot edit it, right? So you can't go back and blur out students' faces or go back and blur out their names. That's why it's really important if you're doing e-learning and you're choosing to record off of your computer that you ask the kids to change their names to their initials or their first name only, because you can't go back and blur those things out.
And can I jump in real quick? Can I just ask everyone to double check their computers to make sure they're muted? We have a little bit of background noise that's coming in from a few different ones. And since I'm not the host, I can't click in to ask someone to mute. So if you can just double check your computers, please. Thanks.
And in the written commentary, you get 5 pages. That's it. And they do want you to refer back to your video. So when you're typing, sometimes I get people who say, well, you know, my video recording, this one student talks so soft and you can hardly hear them. That's okay. You can still use that video, but in your writing, what you're going to do then is use in quotes. When the girl in the red shirt said, then you're going to write what she said so that the scorer knows when they're watching that video what's going on in that little piece that might be soft. Okay. I've had people ask, well, what device did you record on? It's a whole different spectrum. Some people had video cameras. Some people use their phones. Some people use their iPads. Some people have used their Chromebooks. If you're e-learning, you're recording, like I am recording this session, and you've got your video there. So if I had to give words of wisdom about the video, once you're finished with your sorting and you know what topic you want to video, that you start videoing right away. And the reason I would say that is we had some candidates last year going through the renewal, and then COVID hit, and their life was turned upside down, and they had not videotaped yet by March. And we don't want people to wait that long unless there's some special unit that you don't teach until January or February, that you're waiting that long to videotape. That you should video, because you can always toss it out. You don't have to use it. But if you don't have any video, what are you going to write about? So that's that would be a piece of words of wisdom. What do you think, Michelle? Because you had a group last year too, and I think that was our biggest hurdle, was getting those videos done.
Yeah, that was finding something that you can videotape right away, and just kind of monitoring the chat here. I know there's some people who are concerned about things with videotaping and being virtual. And I would suggest in these next couple weeks, really having conversations with your administrator. As Ann said, taking that release form and having them take it to the district lawyers and just make sure that it's fine. And your administrator can do that for you. We've already had some of our deferral candidates that Ann and I are also working with go through that process, and our first-time candidates are also going through that. So, but just having that idea, and even if you videotape something now to get it videotaped, and then you end up getting to go back in person, or even you get to go hybrid in, you know, January or something, have that video camera ready the first week that you have students, just to have something else kind of ready to go. So
yeah, I think that that's really important. As far as the permission slips go, it's just like initial. If you can see or hear a student, you have to have a permission form for it. If there's a parapro that's involved, you have to have a permission slip from them. National Board recognized that you can't be mailing these out and waiting for them to come back, because they'll never come back. So on that maintenance of certificate web page that I showed you, they have a link there where they've taken the permission slip and made it a Google form, so that all the parents have to do is like multiple choice, click, 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 my kid's name is, and click, yes, you have my permission. And then you've got it right back, and it's electronic. Just print it out for yourself, because remember, it's your responsibility to have those permission slips for the 5 years that your renewal will be effective. And so you want to make sure that you have a hard copy of that you store somewhere. I'm only aware of one National Board person in the, let's see, I've been doing National Board more than 20 years, that has been asked for their permission slips. So I would never say don't worry about it, because I know that they do spot check, but I can't promise you that they're going to call you and say, show us your proof. Just be prepared and be ready for it. And
And
then,
a couple video questions here. People are concerned because they have they're not required to have students turn their video on, and so they fear that they might just be videotaping, you know, with no screens on, kind of like we have people who have their screen off right now.
right.
Can you specify in exactly where it says that in the component directions? Because I know I talked about this with my deferral candidates last week, and where that is coming on. And while you're looking for that, something that I will add in here when it comes to the release and even comes to things with talking to your students, you know, before I would send out that release form, when I was in person, I would always add my own letter in front of it. And I think being virtual, an idea might be just to record something for your parents in your voice, you know, you talking to them about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and kind of taking them through that Google form so that they understand, you know, the purpose of them filling this out and how this is helping you grow as an educator. And I would, you know, look at the same thing with your students too, to talking to them to say, hey, this is something I'm doing to help me grow as an educator. For today, can we make sure that we have our cameras on during this time frame, you know, so that we have that. So that just a couple of suggestions that I know we've been talking about with our deferral candidates.
Right. And for MOC, on page 21, down near the bottom of the page, the second yellow dot talks about videoing virtual classrooms. And it does say in there that if the students are using icons or they're turned off, it could negatively impact your MOC decision. So you want to make sure. Now, what you don't have a requirement of is how big the group has to be. So if you have one class that you know they're pretty obstinate, don't use them. Use a different class. And it doesn't have to be the whole class. If you can demonstrate, you know, if you do breakout rooms or something with the kids and you can demonstrate what you're trying to show with a small group, then in your writing, you're just going to say, I chose to use small groups with this topic. And then you're going to use the video of the small group where the kids are all cooperative and have their pictures up on the screen or they're live on the screen, as opposed to the kids who just want to turn everything off. But it is very clear there in that second bullet point that you have to show the interaction between you and the students. It's important that you show up in the video somewhere. You don't have to be there in the video the whole 10 minutes, but they have to be able to see you and identify you in the video.
Something else that I would offer, just as I'm reading the chat, because I am seeing a lot of people who are really concerned. This may be what makes your decision on whether to pursue MOC. If this is only your first year of eligibility and you are really concerned about the idea of videotaping and you know, privacy for your students, and as I'm reading a lot of the comments here, you have a great case for every one of them. But if this is your first year of eligibility for MOC and these are the issues that you're coming up with, then this might not be the year for you to do it, because we don't want you to go through all of this work and then end up with a video that's not going to work, or that you could be scored negatively on. So that's one option. And then I think the other option is really you reaching out to National Board and getting a statement back from them, because when it comes to directions, we are sharing with you what we know. But if there's going to be a judgment made in your scoring, I would rather have a response back from National Board that says you are allowed to do this because you said something with, you know, following cultural guidelines of your families or district policy. I would rather have their statement in my back pocket than the statement of the support professionals, because we are not the end all be all and we don't make the decisions. You know, we're not scorers even. Yeah. So that might help some of you make the decision of whether this is the year to go through it. And I've talked to a few candidates this week who they are waiting another year because they can, and just because of the situations that they're in for this year.
You know,
So I
in
just-
your video monitoring, really, you don't have to submit anything to national boards till the middle of May. And it looks like probably many of the schools are going to be back in the buildings, even if it's not full-time, at least second semester for a hybrid something. So you just have to be ready with that camera, so when you're in the classroom, you start videotaping, and you videotape, 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 and then go through it and see what's going to work for you. But I can tell you, if you go to the National Board website and you go to your account, you make sure you've got your current email address and all that stuff in there, and you email them what the hurdle is, that's how we've been solving and making all of these COVID-19 accommodations, is based on what questions are coming into national boards and how can we solve that to be as fair to people as possible. So if you're looking at this and going, here's what the deal is, I would email them and say, here's my COVID, and label it, here's my COVID-19 issue, how can this be accommodated for? And they have really worked very hard on the accommodations and not leaving people hanging out there. So that is always an option to you. And we're too new into the school year to know if we're going to be home the whole year. Boards are going to be looking at that constantly, especially at the high school level, because those kids want to play sports, and if they're not in the building, what's the problem going to be? So I think a lot is going to change here, that we don't have to panic over the videos yet, but those are some things to think about. Component 2, the prompts for component 2 are on page 24 in your booklet. These are the 8 questions that have to be addressed. Same thing, I bolded the words that are kind of the words that jump out, that are the meat of that question, so that you could underline them on page 24, that when you're doing your writing, that you're making your answers jump across the paper so that the scorer doesn't have to hunt and say, we don't want to take a chance. Did they miss an answer? When we bold it like this, that helps them out, so they know, all right, here's where they're answering question 3, here's where question 4's answer is. And I'll hang on to this for a little bit while we're doing this so that you can underline. Give it a couple of more seconds here, and then I'm going to move on, but I can always come back to this in a little bit. We're almost near the end here, so just so we can finish it up for people who are dying to watch that debate. Okay, so you're going to look at your PGEs. You're going to decide which one you feel is the strongest that you could show in your classroom. You want to be able to identify evidence of student learning, equity of access, the appreciation of diversity, and your certificate-specific content knowledge. Now, I've gotten some questions about that certificate, and that, well, I taught in high school when I did this, but now I'm in middle school, or I was in 3rd grade and now I'm in 6th grade. So you have to go back. You have to go back to your certificate and look at the age range. Please mute your computers. Please mute your computers. Thank you. So you're going to look at that age range for your certificate. As long as 51% of the kids in your classroom are that age range, then you don't have to worry about, well, I moved from high school to middle school. Like particularly, I'm 8th grade, middle school. My kids are 14. Usually by January, most of them are 14. But at the high school, it's 14 to 18. So I could use my 8th grade group because they are going to meet the age limit. And I could do my science there as opposed to doing my high school biology or whatever. If the age group doesn't match, you are going to have to borrow a classroom. If you're an administrator now, or you're, you know, the literacy person or whatever, and you're out of the classroom, you will have to borrow a classroom at your certificate specific level. So that is a little bit of a wrench that's in there for you that you're going to have to deal with it and think about on that also. So what's next? On the NBRC website, on the right-hand side, down page, you registered for the, up at the top, it'll say MOC subsidy, subsidy registration. So that's where you're applying for the state subsidy. The state pays the fee for MOC. It does not pay the registration with national boards. National boards registration fee is $75. So you will have to pay the $75. But the $495, the state's going to pay for you to go through MOC. When you fill out that form for the subsidy on the NBRC website, it's checking to make sure that you're eligible. To be eligible for that subsidy, you have to teach in a public school. So if you're in a private school, you're in a religious school, you're retired, you are not eligible for the subsidy, okay? But that doesn't mean that the money isn't, that there isn't money around. Chris at NBRC has a couple of benefactors who are willing to support some teachers. We have a couple of groups like IFT and IEA, and also the Delta Kappa Gamma group are willing to help teachers who fall into the private school, religious school, or retired group. And if you email the director at National Board Resource Center, she will give you the information that you need to know if you're looking for some kind of help with the cost of renewing. After let's say you're in public school, you filled out the form for the subsidy. It's going to say eligible. That doesn't mean you got the subsidy. You're not done yet. You have to finish the next 2 steps before you're going to do that. You're going to go to your national board account. You're going to select MOC, and you're going to fill out the form that they have there. And when you're all done, it should say submitted. If it says submitted, perfect. Your next step then is going to send an email to NBRC if you want to be part of the MOC support sessions. And they are run on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. It's one time in October, then it's going to be twice in November, once in December, twice in January, twice in February, once in March. There are 9 sessions. And those sessions, as Michelle told you, we delve in really deep with this. And what's nice about being in the support sessions is you also get a reader. And the readers can be the facilitator of the session. And each of us facilitators also have a person that we work with that also does reading. So like for myself, Patty is my partner, and the 2 of us do the reading, and we work very hard with you all to make sure everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. There is no charge for the support sessions. So if it's something that you think you're interested in, then your last step will be to email NBRC and say, hey, I want to be in one of these support sessions. What's open?
The link is in the chat box, and it looks like it just shows openings on Tuesday and Wednesday. So your sessions on Thursday are closed. It looks like you have hit your max.
Okay.
So that means my sessions on Tuesday are open, and Mary Ellen Friel, her sessions on Wednesdays, and mine run from 7 to 9. Mary Ellen's are like, she's like 7. I think she starts at 7:30.
No, I'm the 7:30. She's the
7:30. Okay, she's also a 7 to 9.
Yeah.
And there was a question on here that someone who is a general education teacher now, but has their boards in mild to moderate special needs. So the age range still meets the requirement, but not the content area. Would she need to borrow a classroom?
Well, if she had, so let's take that situation. You're a general education teacher. If you have special education students who have pushed in, and it's going to work with the directions, with whatever PGE you're going to use, you can use those special ed students that are in your classroom. And if it's not going to fit for you, then yes, you would need to work it out with the special education teacher. Maybe you can flip-flop a day and you go in and guest teach for them, and they come in and take your general class while you're working with the special ed kids. So this is the NBRC website. Here's where you're going to fill in the form to get the subsidy for the state. And then you'll go to the National Board website. In both places, make sure you have your current email address, everything's up to date on you. You're going to need to know your IEIN number. You can find that on your, when you go into Ellis from the state board, you're going to need to know that number. That's how everybody knows you, is by that IEIN number. So there are all sorts of support things over at the NBRC website. We already talked about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Sounds like from Michelle, she checked it already and Thursday's closed, so Tuesday and Wednesday are open. You're gonna have 9 sessions. Those sessions run about 2 hours. Maybe not always the whole 2 hours, but close to it. And then you also will have a reader. And on our last page here, this is just the things from NBPTS. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can see people. And when some of you, when you filled in your form to say you want to register for this Jumpstart, there were a bunch of questions. You know, like the last thing you were asked was, is there anything you want the instructor to cover? And what I did was go through those questions. And so I'm gonna talk a little bit. First question was, I imagine discussing how to make adjustments in MOC process because of remotely teaching. And we talked about the COVID-19 link on the National Board website. And please, if there is a situation that you are in that's not addressed there, email them, because they've worked very hard to make sure that they take care of the accommodations. Support options, we talked about that. So if you are not in a public school, you're going to email Chris, and it's Chris Mason. She's the director of the NBRC, and ask her what she has up her sleeve for people who are either retired, public or private school or religious school, to help them out. When should you start? You're going to start with your list. And you already heard me say a couple times, that's all we do with our candidates in October, is to get them to really work on that list and to understand that, you know, how, once you have that list, how are we going to support things so that we can sort them out into topics and go from there. Are there any ways to streamline the paperwork for student forms in a digital environment? And that would be the permission slips. And yes, because that was sent to national boards, they have put a Google form together. The link for the Google form is in both English and Spanish. If you need it in a different language, you need to email them and let them know that. And they'll work with you on those things. Are there any legal issues with using a recording of a class in Google Meet to submit as evidence? The videos that you are sending go nowhere but National Board, okay? And once your evaluation is taken care of, the video's gone. They don't, you know, they don't stockpile them. They don't have any place to put them. And what are they going to do with a video from 10 years ago? So I don't see that there is a legal issue, but if in your district it's being questioned, we have found that if you print one of the student permission slips, it has all the legalese on it. And if you bring that to your administrators, they can have their attorney take a look at it. If they're still giving you a hard time about it, then National Board said email them, because they will contact your district personally to reassure them of how everything is being used. The anonymity of student names, that's important. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would say is a legal issue. I mean, I've had one candidate whose school district, once they got the form, said, okay, but you're going to tell us what day you're videotaping, because we want to know when the videotape is being done. So they just wanted a little bit of control to say, before we open all this up to you, we want you to let us know when you're going to videotape. Some school districts have asked their candidate that when you videotape that they get a copy of the videotape also, so that they know what was in the videotape. There's no problem giving them that. Then we have, let's see, what if you're not in a teaching role? We already talked about if you're not in a teaching role, you're going to have to borrow a classroom that's at the level of your certificate. Now, if you're a library media specialist and you used to have kids come into the library and you taught library skill lessons there, and maybe you can work it out with a language arts teacher or something to be on their Zoom and do a book talk or a library skills activities to do so that you can tape your video. The other question here was, well, if my certificate doesn't, if my initial doesn't expire until 2022, do I lose the 2 years if I do my MOC now? No, you don't. The MOC recertification does not kick in until your initial bounces out. So once that one's over with, then it goes into effect. All right, that took care of the questions that you all mailed in. So pop off those, if you have a question, I'm happy to have you unmute yourself and just ask the question, and I will stay on and answer as many questions as there are. And if you say, nope, I've had it, and I think I have a pretty good handle on what's going to be expected of me, please feel free to pop out.
I'm still checking for a few people to see. Megan, I'm checking yours. Dana, I'm checking yours. And Sherry, I'm just going through all three lists. So they were wanting to make sure if they were registered.
Mm-hmm. And please remember, if you didn't type your name into the chat room, if you would do that, because that's the only way we have an attendance list to give to the state. I'm glad you are. So many of you are saying that you're really comfortable, that this really helped. I'm glad it did. I don't want you to lose any stomach lining over this. It's totally different than the first time around. The hardest part is making the list. Once you make that list and you sort it out, then you know what you're writing about, what you're videotaping, and it goes by quickly. But the list takes time. Any other questions?
If you're looking for the registration to sign up for the cohorts, that's the form stack that's linked in chat here. So if you scroll up the chat, I think we've put it in there twice. Lauren put it in first time. I put it in the second time. That's the link that will get you so that you can sign up for a cohort. Okay.
Christine, I don't see her on the screen, but her question. Yes, Adrienne, anybody can sign up for the cohorts. That's available to all of you who are eligible for MOC.
Sherry, I'm not seeing. Sherry Daniels, I'm not seeing your name on there.
Hi, I signed up already for a cohort, but I don't know if I'm on the list. This is Monica.
Okay, you know what I think I might do? If I can just share my screen, it might make it easier. I will just go through each night and share my screen once, and you can see if your name is on there. I think that might be easier than me going back and forth with
Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
I'll do that. So
Okay, thank you.
I think that's going to be easier. My eyes are a little bit bugging out. Okay, so this is Thursday right now. So I see if we go through the list here, you can start, and they're not in any alphabetical order. Like I can see Marcy's on here twice, so we'll have to clean that up. It might have gone through twice and they'll have to see that. I'm going to go past Danielle and get to the bottom down here. Okay, so this is the bottom. of Thursday night. And then the next one up, come on. This is Tuesday night. Let me go to the top. And again, if you used a different name, that might be how like if you used if you had under your maiden name or a married name or something, and that might have been how I saw it differently. So this is Tuesday night. This is my group in Tuesday. And it says the last edits were made yesterday at 11:03. So if you applied for this today, it probably won't get updated for us until tomorrow. So this takes it through.
Yes, I know Amy really got slammed today with a lot of people.
Yeah, so there's Adrian, and then the last few down here. And then finally, Wednesday night with Mary Ellen, and this one has the most openings right now.
I had picked Wednesday, but I don't see my name there. So,
Do you know when you signed up? Do you remember what day?
It was Saturday.
Okay. And this one says last edit 5 days ago, at least what it says on mine. So they may have not 100% updated everything yet. So check back with us in a couple days and we can double check everything that we have out there. So we'll get everybody in. It's not, don't worry.
All right. Thank you.
They have enough room for all of us.
Thank you.
The deadline there's a question here about the deadline for applying for the subsidy. It's on a first come, first served basis. It appears that we have enough money for everybody. So I don't think I would drag my feet. On the other hand, do you have to do it in the next 30 seconds? No. I think it closes down, well, it closes down when either the money runs out or the end of the year. So you have a while that you can go in there and do the subsidy, but remember it's a first come, first serve basis. So you want to make sure that you get your things in there as quick as you decide that you're going to do this. What other questions can we answer for you?
One question that's in the chat that says, what if I decide to wait for next year if they're not up till 2022? You don't apply for anything right now then. You just kind of hold this in your back pocket, and then when applications come out for next year, then you can do that.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not up till 2022, I mean, here's the thing to think about. If you do it in your third year and you're not successful or you get overwhelmed or whatever, then you have a fourth year to work on it. But if you wait till your fourth year, it's a do or die. I mean, you have to get it done if you're going to renew. And yes, there's a very good percentage, 95% of the people, not an issue.
But for some too, this might just be too much of a crazy year.
It is a crazy
year
that
we're teaching right now. So, I mean, I'm lucky I'm in person, probably one of the few in the state of Illinois that is. So, you know, but even some of my teachers who are up for renewal are choosing not to just because it is such a crazy year.
And you might just want to wait and see what your district's going to decide to do. My district, well, actually, McHenry County, pretty much all the schools are going back in October, at some point in October. My district is October 5th, but we have some that are going back on the 12th and some on the 15th. So it might be, if you hear the rumblings in your district that they expect to be back in classrooms in December, then you might want to consider it, because you'll have kids in front of you at some point.
Just for the comment that was made about, you know, CPS, I would talk to your union, and I would talk to your administrators and see what advice and what support they might that they could offer you for this. That's the unfortunate part, that we can't control how each district is
Right.
approaching learning for this year. And we cannot persuade National Board to change anything in here. Neither one of us are in CPS. So I'm in St. Charles in the west suburbs. Mary Ellen is retired from U46 in Elgin, and Ann is retired from McHenry County. So we are all in suburban districts. And I have worked with a lot of renewal candidates in CPS. So yes, I totally understand that it's a very different world. But I think you have to reach out to the people in your district at that point. I can say, even for my own district, we're not allowed to videotape. And so my renewal candidates in my own district are really working with our union president and our administrators right now to try and get that. But, that's a lead that they're taking because they're going through this year. So it is different in every district and how their laws are.
Mm-hmm. And CPS does have their Quest Center, and I believe that they also run sessions of support for their
Adrian commented on that too. Yes. So they might have a different way. If you go through their support, they might have a way to support specific situations.
Okay, since there are so few people here,
Yes.
I'd rather say this than write it.
Sure.
Okay. I will not go to the Quest Center. There are
Okay.
no conditions under which I would do that. Okay?
And that's
Just,
your choice. Yeah.
all right. Thank you.
We're just letting you know that we're aware that the Quest Center is there. I don't know how it runs. I don't know, because
We don't work.
CPS doesn't communicate well with us, so we don't know.
Yeah. So, okay. All right.
All right, ladies, any other questions?
All right. Well, thank you for logging on.
Thanks for coming. We hope we helped you, and I'm sure Chris will let you know if she's going to post this up or not.
Yeah, I have an email to you right now, Anne. So I'll
Thank you.
with it.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more thing before you guys go. Where was the legal thing that I should be sending to my principal?
That's on the National Board's website.
Okay.
Right. It's the student permission form that you're printing out so that they can see all the legal stuff to it.
Oh, okay. So just send the same form that you would send to the students to the principal.
And then they
That's
send
what
it
you're
on
going
to
to
the
do
district
with
leaders.
your students. If you're e-learning with your students, National Board rewrote that form as a Google form so that you can do it electronically. But for the purpose of your principal or your administration, I would print the form out and bring it to them and say, this is all the legalese. This is the stuff that the parents are signing off on. What do you think?
Okay. Thank you guys all so very much. I just moved, and I went from high school to middle school, and I'm in a different state, and I'm in like full panic because my previous coworkers are all in a program. I went through the union's program, and so they're all still in Chicago and still doing that.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh no, like I need something at least to like, somebody to bounce ideas off and hold me accountable and give me a timeline and a schedule. And
Well, in the cohorts, we will do that.
Yes, we're good at that. We're very pushy.
yeah, and I was an Illinois State alum back in 2009, so I was like, I'm hoping that if I had to be in Illinois to be in the cohort, that I could like pull some strings, because I haven't heard anything back from anybody in Michigan yet about like cohorts or support or anything. So yeah, so I was just panicking that I wasn't going to be able to get this done. So
the cohort portion, I don't see a problem with being in a cohort. The subsidy would be the issue. If you're in
Yeah,
Michigan, you're not going to get the subsidy, but to get the help and work with us, that shouldn't be
fine. Yeah.
okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I emailed my union rep. I emailed someone at MEA. So I'm just constantly emailing people like, who wants to give me money for this? I think my district might, because I know they offer tuition assistance. So this might fly for that, but I'm also planning on going back to school in the spring and joining a cohort for ELL certification. So I'm like, I kind of need the money for that too. So
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Um,
Adrian, another thing you might want to check is check in your area to see if there is a chapter of Delta Kappa Gamma.
okay.
That's a women's education service group, and they have grant money that they use to support teachers going through certifications.
That would be amazing.
And I know in our area, I happen to be in a Delta Kappa Gamma chapter, and our chapter supports 2 teachers every year to go through national boards or to go through their renewal. So if there's one of those chapters there, they have 2 kinds of piles of money. One's called a grant and one's called a scholarship. And the grants are for people who are not members of Delta Kappa Gamma. The scholarships are for teachers who are part of Delta Kappa Gamma.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I will definitely reach out to them here in a little bit if I don't hear back from like the MEA or my union or anything, because it appears that there's things, but I just haven't heard back from anybody about how to go about accessing those
You
funds.
know,
So,
check around on the National Board website too, because they list the states that have supports and see what's listed under Michigan.
yeah, I think I saw something. That's probably how I got to this. A lot of them talks about initial certification when I click on some of them. So I'm assuming that they would cover renewal if they're covering initial. So
Many of
There's
them are
also a
starting
couple-
to.
Yeah, and there's also a couple of Facebook groups for renewal and maintenance of certification. And sometimes some people on there will be able to connect you with other resources in your state. If you're like, hey, who on here is in Michigan, looking to connect, there's some great people in those groups too. Yeah,
I'll check Facebook also.
yeah. The good thing for Facebook. So.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time and your support, and I will definitely be joining a cohort, and I'm super excited.
All right.
Good for
Thanks,
you.
Adrian.
All right. Have a good evening.
All right. You too.
All right. I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah.